Kingdom is one of the best-selling manga in Japan. You'd never know it though, because in the West, the manga and anime are barely marketed, talked about, or even available. It's not small, but Kingdom is vastly under-distributed. In terms of entertainment, Kingdom isn't entirely non-fiction, and contains a lot of emphasized and fictitious events of ancient China. Some people might think that that's a shame, but I think Yasuhisa Hara makes this a strength by instead crafting a series that, whilst not historically accurate, is always atmospherically accurate. The world of Kingdom is one which captures the feeling of ancient Chinese civilization with impressive precision. It does this by going hand in hand with books like The Art of War and the sayings of Sun Tzu to paint an accurate picture of the battlegrounds in ancient China and of specifics like wind, distance, land types, and the hungriness of men to be the deciding factors of war. It's kind of hilarious that on the subreddit there's this flair for spoilers, but also a flair for historical spoilers, that there's a bunch of people, myself included, who are avoiding literal history so that the story remains surprising. The research and understanding of Chinese history on Hara's part is incredible, and it really heightens the experience if you've read or plan on reading up on some ancient Chinese generals, like Sun Tzu and Wu Tzu. The backdrop of the story, ancient China, is split into different counties and ruled by different nobles, who are all warring against each other to maintain and strengthen their kingdoms. This story takes place in the kingdom of Qin, a county ruled by the young prince Eisei. Kingdom starts with two peasant boys, Xin and Hyo, who want to become generals. It's something that, by normal conventions, can never happen. Hyo and Xin are visited by a general who recruits Hyo to serve him. Hyo obviously happily accepts, but meets an early death as nothing more than a body double for Prince Eisei. Xin, initially driven by vengeance, reaches Eisei and promises to fulfill his dream of becoming a general, for himself and for the recently departed Hyo. As Eisei realizes Xin's usefulness, the two slowly grow a bond and fight for Eisei's ascension to not only maintain control of Qin, but to unify all the counties of China under one country. Xin's story is one of growth, and to look at the mentor character of the series, Oki is someone met well after Hyo's death and shortly after the introduction of Prince Eisei. When Sei is introduced, we are quickly taught to differentiate Hyo from him, as Sei's unshaking and sometimes cold grasp for the throne is prioritized far higher than a lowly life like Hyo's. This is observable through his speech, through his mannerisms, and through his actions. It angers Xin, and it's supposed to anger us too. At first, we don't really care for Eisei. In fact, Xin's first training general is one of the most understandable characters in this entire first part of the story. Oki is the general that Xin wants to train under, and as he is constantly rejected and thrust into battles alongside him, we see the beginning principles of Sun Tzu's Art of War come into play. The wisdom and camaraderie make Oki the first high-standing character we look up to. And yet, in this first part of the story, he dies. But only after forming a bond with Eisei and fighting for him to the death. It's this honourable loss for a noble cause that doesn't die out, but like in the world of the story, it passes itself onto the troops and is used as a way for the audience, and Xin, to finally side with Sei. And this is pretty much how Hara does characterization. Like a torchlight carrying on for a single purpose, the ideals of the army carry on, drive the soldiers to their goal, and drive the audience to appreciate the characters. There are so many characters in Kingdom, and that's not something unique. They're not all even that well written, some of them are literally run-of-the-mill tropes, but unlike in other series, Kingdom has characterization driven by tactics and battle preparation. Kingdom's diversity comes from the different roles they all play. As the world is expanded, more and more characters are introduced. They all play their own individual role in the bigger picture, and once they're introduced, it's like a melting pot of developments, where their ambitions and their intuitions carry them through events, and present countless interesting and new outcomes for the story. Even more so when victors of previous battles turn up unexpectedly or in different roles than what we're used to. The story is composed of two things: battle and political drama. It works so well in terms of its battles because of how closely this series ties in with Tzu's philosophies. The mastery of information, that an army must work to give its opponent the wrong image of them, lends itself to some extremely entertaining plot twists and very exciting fight sequences. The keep them guessing approach of war is done to ensure obedience in the ranks, but it doubles down as a really great storytelling method to create these aforementioned twists. Being a historical manga that takes place after Sun Tzu's The Art of War, Hara takes great steps in adapting and displaying some of these important aspects. Sun Tzu paints a picture of the ideal general. In Kingdom, Li Boku, a major antagonist, personifies this ideal and of the importance of tactics. We're introduced to this world with one goal in mind, to become a great general. But obviously, this is a boy who wants to fight and has nothing but anger in him from the very beginning. He, and thereby we, are slowly taught the real means of fighting this war through Shin's growing maturity, tactics, and control. Oki is killed by Li Boku's tactics, which shows us a greater sense of this importance. Li Boku is this ideal. He who knows both sides has nothing to fear in 100 fights. A saying taken straight from Sun Tzu, and one of great importance to Kingdom. Li Boku is an intimidating soldier who predicts the moves of others like a professional chess player, taking advantage of others for the sake of winning whoever's side he fights, and thus, his reputation is of someone who never loses. There are 5 matters which leaders must carefully consider. First, reason. With reason, a multitude can be controlled like a small number. Second, preparation. Preparedness sees an enemy outside the gate. Third, determination. Determination before the enemy has no thought of life. Fourth, vigilance. Even after victory, vigilance behaves as before the first encounter. And fifth, simplicity. Simplicity ensures few regulations and preserves order. He's a firm, unshaken character who claims to succeed through simply not wanting to die. He seldom celebrates or worries, simply going through the motions of cold, calculated success, displaying all of these features through a simple existential desire to survive. We get most of the battlefield analysis through Li Boku's perspective, and we learn that even the most seemingly trivial thing, such as wind or type of land, are imperative to success. In marching, movements and halts must be properly adjusted. When going forth to battle, the direction of the wind must be studied. When the road is steep and narrow, when there are famous mountains and fastnesses where 10 men can defend and 1,000 cannot pass them by, such is the influence of ground. Because of the naive start of his story, Shin's development is brilliant as we learn together. He's such an angry kid who gets really humbled as the series progresses. The general must not fight because there is anger in his heart. What Shin learns and becomes attuned to is the philosophical idea of Tao, a philosophy of enlightenment, in this case specifically of synergy and refinement of battle intuition. It's no surprise then that Oki embodies it, dies, and becomes a hero in Shin's eyes. To further this growth in a physical and spiritual way, almost like a spiritual martyr. In the end of the first war arc, we see Oki's true power, by cutting through their opponents like butter, with a straight line of spear-armed soldiers. It's seen as reckless and suicidal, but because of the collective energy of the men, it's the single most threatening and intimidating tactic in Oki's book. One of the predictors of victory, after all, is when leadership and people are of one mind. And when it ends in his demise, the soldiers aren't really defeated, because their resolve has been strengthened by Oki's actions. Shin and the others now have a road to follow, a purpose to accomplish, and just like that tactic of a human barrage, even without their leader, they have been strengthened all the more from this tactic. Those are all influences taken upon the battle elements of the story, but even when it comes to the political drama and the downtime of Kingdom, we get to see the foiling of many rulers by much the same frame of mind. The secret of war is, first, to know who is the enemy's general. If the general be stupid and heedlessly trustful, he may be enticed by fraud. If he be avaricious and careless of his fame, he may be bribed with gifts. Despite being written so elegantly, it's the same kind of conflict as something like The Sopranos, where the different kingdoms are families and the different generals are made men. It's written so fancifully, but at the end of the day, these were brutal times. And these noble conflicts are the very starting point to the methods of our conflict in recent times. Kingdom's relevance to today is being an entertaining portrayal of these ancient philosophies. Thousands of years old, and yet it's one of the most accurate in its understanding of the human mind. It instills a true sense of war, both semi-historically and more philosophically.